Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Wakile Quick One. And if you've noticed today, we've shifted base. We are the great offices of Triple Okelo, and we have a legend in the house. He will introduce himself. And before he does that, I would want us to have a moment of silence to pay tribute to another legend who passed on, the late Evans Monari. Thank you. Senior Counsel, I want you to introduce yourself to the viewers. And maybe before you get into it, you say a few words about your great friend, Mr. Monari.
Let me say a few words about Evans before I introduce myself, actually, as a tribute to him. Evans was my senior in the legal profession. He was ahead of me. Actually, he was contemporaries with my senior partners, James Ochieno Duo and Tom Onyango. They were in the same class. And so, in a sense, my relationship with Evans mirrored my relationship with my partners. Because you grow up in this profession looking up to people. You look up to those who are way ahead of you, and you look up to those who are just slightly ahead of you. And Evans was just slightly ahead of me. Evans was witty. Evans, he always had a comeback to anything. But I remember Evans most because for some reason we found ourselves traveling to a lot of destinations with Evans, international conferences, either with speakers or participants, and that enabled us to develop a friendship because the benefit with those conferences and travel is that there's a social side to it, which enables you to get to know each other better, spend more time together in a more relaxed environment, which we did. And of course, back within the profession, I followed what he did. I followed his journey from farm to farm. Evans traveled quite a bit. I think he finally settled at Moments, which was good. And we did some work together because there were several occasions on which I was asked to lead what and which Moments was involved in. And that necessarily required me to collaborate with Evans and some of his other partners at Moments. Formulate strategy, formulate arguments, and so on. So, and then socially, I patronized Saxon Violin. It's in my neighborhood. And Evans, as you know, was a stakeholder, was chairman of Sax. And so we would meet there as well. Have a drink, talk about work, talk about social activities, our different interests. And we had a rich relationship. And really, it's really been tragic that he's gone so soon. I had the privilege of serving in the committee that was put together to give him a fitting send-off. And I'm truly glad that we were able to give him a send-off that befitted who he was and what he meant to us. So having said that, my name is John Ohaga. JMO, depending on where you know me. In the firm, a lot of times we use initials, so they'll call me JMO or MP for managing partner. Those who've known me growing up, all the way from primary school through to high school through to university, will call me John Moore. John Moore was a name that everybody in sporting circles called me. I played rugby for Mean Machine, and thereafter I played for Kenya. So in that environment, everybody knows me as John Moore. So it's interesting for me because the way that you address me enables me to identify which era you know me from.
Interesting.
It enables me to categorize you, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. I find it very interesting that names stick with you, and people are unable to get away from them when their knowledge of you is considerably has some depth, because then they still identify you as that person. And I say that because, for instance, even Smokey Monjala in the Supreme Court will still call me John Moore. Having been my teacher, my lecturer, and now judge. And some people simply call me John, you know. And back to practice of law. Justice Nyamu was one of my pupil masters at HHM. When he became a judge, he never ever addressed me as Mr. Ohaga. He would say, John, who are you acting for today?
No one calls you a C?
Well,
no, we do.
Oh, we do.
We do.
Yeah.
That's a new phenomenon, I have to say, and I call it a phenomenon deliberately.
Yeah.
Because believe you me, before I became senior counsel, I did not quite appreciate the status of senior counsel. Even today, I'm still astounded as to the respect that comes with being senior counsel. The respect accorded to you by your professional colleagues, including those that accorded to you by the bench, the respect accorded to you by your clients. And it's very interesting, your clients have an added comfort in knowing that they are looked after by senior counsel. And so, you don't start off practicing law with the aspiration to be senior counsel. When I started practicing law, there wasn't senior counsel. Senior counsel came just with the advent, I believe, of the 2010 Constitution. President Kibaki, the first lot of senior counsel were inculcated into office or into those positions at that time. And I think there's maybe only 48 of us. So it really is a club. I am saddened sometimes by all the drama that accompanied the recommendation of a lot of senior counsel. But having said that, in a very funny way, it has served to heighten awareness and knowledge about senior counsel. Because there was so much press around senior counsel, so much press around, who are these people who've been recommended, and eventually when we were gazetted and eventually signed the role of senior counsel, there was a lot of press around it. And so certainly that has helped the cause of senior counsel. It is no longer an obscure group of people. So there's always unintended consequences which are beneficial, and this was greatly beneficial. So I have to say I'm very proud to be senior counsel. When I applied to be senior counsel, I looked at the parameters and the requirements, and I truly felt that I met the requirements. So it isn't anything that was conferred on me because of considerations other than merit. But I'm also humbled because when I look at the applicants that applied in our lot, I see people so much senior to me who did not have the privilege of being conferred that rank, whilst I did. So it really is humbling. It makes you proud, but it also humbles you.
Just a quick question, quick follow-up. Out of the 48, how many of them are not court-going lawyers?
It's funny that you should ask that. Only today, I was, because we speak in a lot of forums within the firm.
Yeah.
And I was saying to our commercial teams and our real estate teams that I think it's unfair that they don't get the recognition that they deserve.
Yes.
Because the reality is that a dispute resolution lawyer has greater prominence, visibility than
a commercial lawyer. Yeah.
When we talk about appointments to high office within the law, judges, dispute resolution, the Attorney General is looked at as a lawyer. He advises on a lot of other things.
Yeah.
But the public only sees that side of him that relates to the court going or the litigating
aspect of his practice.
Yeah. So I think that there needs to be some equalization in the way that there is conferment of the rank and privilege of senior counsel, so that it's not so skewed in favor of dispute resolution lawyers. So, and especially not just dispute resolution, but litigation lawyers.
Yeah.
I say dispute resolution because I consider myself as a dispute resolution lawyer because I'm not just a litigating lawyer, a litigator, but I also practice arbitration and mediation. So I've looked at it in a more rounded way.
I asked for selfish reasons.
Yeah, I know.
Because I've been a commercial lawyer. I've actually never stepped into court.
Yes.
And I don't consider myself a person who's not going to achieve a lot.
Yes.
So I just hope by the time we are gathering all that momentum, then the system has gotten to a place where it accepts what we do.
We'll fight for you.
And I think it will. I think it will. There was a lawsuit actually that sought to advance that.
Okay.
I think there was a lawsuit. I haven't quite followed it to see what the outcome was, but there was a lawsuit whose premise was built on that. But I absolutely agree with you. Having said that, the tradition though of conferment of Queen's Counsel, Senior Counsel, has been steeped in litigation. So there needs to be a more opening, a more acceptance that the other areas of practice are just as important.
Now, let me just take you back. Hii kitu ulianza wapi? Ulianza primary wapi, ukaenda high school wapi? Ulijua unataka kuwa wakili lini? Na usiniambie kama ulikuwa number 20 class, if you never number 1 in class, tell me. That's the story that we want to hear.
Well, let me start with something that even my kids get astounded when I tell them this. I have never been to a day school. I have never left school in the morning and come back home in the evening. I have, from kindergarten, I was sent to boarding school. So I've grown up in boarding school. And that has given me a mentality of self-reliance. Because I never then relied on my parents to give me the tools to have to deal with school tomorrow. Whether it's a bully in the playground, whether it's a teacher, whether it's homework, I've never had that. So I've got a huge reservoir of self-reliance. But also, boarding school life is about discipline. You know, you wake up at a certain time, you go to sleep at a certain time. And I've carried that all my life. You know, I need to go to bed now, I need to be up now. It exasperates my wife sometimes.
Yeah.
But when it's bedtime, it's bedtime.
Yeah.
So I went to primary school initially in St. Augustine's Preparatory School in Mombasa. And then I left and went right across the country to Kitale, a school called Kitale Primary School. It's now called Kitale Academy. I don't know if I like the change of name. And then I left, and I'm sure that this will now become a hashtag as it accompanies everything that we do. But I went to Alliance.
It's the Alliance.
I went to the Alliance.
Yes.
Sawa sawa.
I went to Alliance, did my O-levels and A-levels there. My parents had the ambition for me to be a dentist. Funnily enough, I was the expert in pulling out teeth growing up, my siblings. The teeth was loose. I would, so they, you know, your parents think, this one's going to be a dentist. And my dad was very much a scientist. His training was as an engineer, even though he ended up as a teacher. But he was a scientist. So your father has the ambition for you to follow him, to be a scientist. When the time came for me to choose my A-level subjects at O-level, I told my folks what my subject choices were going to be, and they had a crisis. They said, no, what happened? You know? We had a plan for you, but for some, and I will not pretend that I had this thing about going out and arguing cases and being a human rights activist. It was very instinctive for me, because going through O-levels, I had a balance in terms of my performance in arts and sciences. Slightly better in the arts, but there was a balance, because the reality is Alliance requires you to have that balance. But eventually they accepted. So I went back for my A-levels. I managed to qualify for the Faculty of Law, University of Nairobi. I studied law, and I went to the Kenya School of Law. I was then lucky again, and there's a significant amount of luck that you have to credit for your pathway in life. I was lucky that HHM, Hamilton, Harrison and Matthews selected me to be a pupil. Back then, the firms, or let's say the large firms, would come to the faculty and select students. So they came to the faculty, they selected, and I was selected, and I did my pupillage there. And I spent thereafter in my class. Actually, one of the things that I'm proud of, my law school class, I was the first to be employed at HHM. HHM quickly offered me an associate position, and I took it on, and I stayed on for 3 years. But I have to confess that, you know, when you're in a large firm like that, you start off at the bottom of the pile. And the benefit of a large firm like HHM is the training in terms of the technical aspects of law. I had the best training. And by the time I was done with my pupillage, I felt ready. But they start you off with doing magistrate's court work. So I did a lot of magistrate's court work, and I was waiting for when am I going to?
There's a
The big, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Today we allow our new associates 3 days later to be in the Court of Appeal.
Yeah.
Yeah? I wasn't allowed to.
Yeah.
And I became frustrated. So I left. I thought, let me try and find my fortune in a smaller farm.
Yeah.
So I found a small farm called R.A. Castle at the time.
Ah?
R.A. Castle.
Ah, yes.
Is it still
There
there?
was a lady called Mrs. Castle. She's not there anymore.
Ah.
I practiced there, and it widened my horizon because suddenly they felt lucky to have someone from a landlord argue their complex cases.
Yeah.
And so I could argue the length and breadth of the courts, from the
Yeah.
magistrates to the High Court to the Court of Appeal.
Yeah.
And it really, I felt that I flourished in that.
Yeah.
And then Tom Onyango and I formed a farm because he was in R.A. Castle.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, so that's how we met. Well, no, strictly speaking, not how we met. I knew him.
Professionally. That's how we knew him
I
professionally.
knew him professionally, I knew him personally. You'd be surprised. He's
I think senior.
parents.
I think senior.
Yes.
Let's not go there because I know that's a journey on its
That's a
own, and I
journey,
don't
yeah.
want you to take anything
Yeah.
from that.
Okay, yeah.
This one we can cap it at that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know, you go ahead.
No, rumor has it that you played for the great Mean Machine.
Yes, I played for Mean Machine. Being an Alliance boy, I did not. First team when I joined University of Nairobi
Yeah.
was populated by Lenana School and
Ah. Okay.
and they were very protectionist about their positions in the team.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, I love rugby. Incidentally, I was games captain in my year in Alliance.
Yeah.
Because I played an array of games. I played football, I played hockey for the first team, rugby for the first team. I ran the sprints, I was an athlete, got to the provincials, I played handball. So I played every sport that I could. I tried my hand at basketball, but my height didn't quite.
Yeah.
So, but you know, as you go up, you have to choose. And rugby was my first love. I quickly had a passion for it. So, Mean Machine, I thought, yeah, maybe I might get into the third team starting out.
Yeah.
But we had a coach, Bimbo Mutere, who had a very keen eye. I'd like to think because I was the beneficiary of it.
Yeah.
And he watched me on the training field and he moved me from different positions, eventually moved me to the first team.
Which position were you playing?
I played standoff, fly half.
Or fly half.
When I joined UN, I told him, no, I'm a center. So I started playing center. But after he watched me, he said, you're a fly half. Which was true because in school I played fly half. So he moved me back to fly half in the very first game of the year, which is a traditional season opener against KU. I scored the winning drop kick. And I became a legend after that. You know?
Yeah.
And the Lenana boys and the Nairobi school boys could no longer argue about my place in the team.
Yeah.
And after that, obviously, I went on to play in the all-conquering Mean Machine side,
Yeah.
where I enabled Edward Rombo to score bucket loads of tries. I was selected for Kenya, played for Kenya for I forget how many number of years. I value sport and I value rugby. Rugby gave me my first passport, gave me my first opportunity to travel overseas, get on a plane and fly somewhere.
Yeah.
That was to Zimbabwe, to Zambia. Our first matches I played at the All Africa Games, which were hosted here. It allowed me to travel to Italy, Singapore, Hong Kong, you know. So for me, sport is something that I truly value.
So,
Knows it as well.
so, for the sake of the fans, can we sing the anthem for Main Machine?
Do you know it?
I know it.
But we have to sing. You know
Yeah,
it.
I know it. I know it.
Okay.
We can go.
Okay, we can go.
Yeah. My faith is built on nothing else but the spirit of Main Machine, going away to make a try against all the other sides. On Main Machine I lay my trust, all other teams are sinking sides. All other teams are sinking sides.
Are you guys Christians?
Are you Christians?
Are you Christians?
I was a number 9.
But it never sleeps. No, you were a scrum half.
Yes,
Good, that's
scrum
good.
half.
Me and the scrum half had to be in sync.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's get on to more serious things.
Wow.
It's amazing. I'm becoming the Main Machine. But anyway, let's go back to how you started serious practice. So you've talked about the training. You've talked about moving to Kasam. Yeah.
Yes.
You've talked about meeting Tom.
Yes.
Let's start there. Of course, the farm now is big. You have many partners and many associates. But let's talk about just the beginning. How many mergers came after that, and just talk a little about picking of the people you get into bed with. Oh, sorry, the people, the people who you decide to partner with. Such kind of things.
It's a bed.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it is a bed actually. In the end.
It's a bed of lies. Yeah, but just talk about how you. I wouldn't say select because some things are set in the skies, but
True. Yeah.
but just talk about how you decide which alliances to get into, which partnerships to get into, and such kind of things.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Even though I moved to a smaller farm and practiced with Tom at the farm called Onyango Ohaga, that's Tom Onyango, John Ohaga. I always had a big farm mentality because of what my pupillage at HHM and my subsequent employment there. You look at structures, you look at the way they do things, and you admire them and you want a template for that. So I always had that. So at the back of my mind was always this concept: how can we create something like this? But choosing partners is a different proposition. And as you say, some things are made in the skies. You don't really decide them yourself. And for me, this came totally out of the blue, I have to confess, because in an interesting way, when Tom and I came together, we agreed Tom would be the transaction lawyer and I would be the litigating partner. Now, James Ochieng we were very good friends, even though it's interesting that him and I were such good friends, but he was Tom's contemporary in university.
Yeah.
In fact, they shared a flat soon after college. And we found ourselves on different sides with James on numerous occasions. For this reason, we had a largely corporate clientele. We developed quickly developed a corporate clientele with a lot of clients as our in our client list. And one of our specialities was credit card collections. And then that, when you act for banks, then of course, debt recovery, then hand acted for debtors.
I see.
Yeah.
So we would file suit, he would enter appearance for somebody or the other.
Yeah.
And he had this very interesting way in handling our relationship. He would call me and say, John, I've been instructed in one of your matters.
Yeah.
I'm going to smash you.
Yeah.
So sometimes on the eve of a hearing, an application or whatever, when we were against each other, he would call me in the evening. Those days there was no mobile phones. He would call me on my direct line and rehearse his arguments. Tomorrow I'm going to tell the judge, you know, that the penalty interest you're charging is unconscionable, or my client didn't sign it. And I'll tell him, James, please, spare your arguments for tomorrow. Wait tomorrow. Why do you want me to disclose my arguments to you? Because I've thought about a response to each one of your arguments, and you're going to lose. So we had that really interesting relationship. So on this day, we were against each other. I was acting for a bank, and he was acting as usual for a debtor. And we were before, I remember it so clearly, we were before Justice Onyango Otieno at the Milimani Court. So after we had argued our application, because we were good friends, we would then normally go off and have a cup of coffee and laugh, you know. As we stepped out of court, some crazy thing, I no forethought, I will never be able to tell why. I said to him, listen, you keep calling me every evening. Why don't we just merge and save you? Now, he on the other hand was a real lone, you know, that sole proprietor. If you asked me today, I would have said that was in his DNA. But very strangely, he said, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do it. So I thought, oops, you know, I have not mentioned anything to Tom. I have not thought through this. So now I have to think backwards. Say, okay, let me go and tell
I'll get
Tom.
back to you.
No, this I'll get back to you. I told him, let's have lunch. Now, our offices were at 20th Century. His office was at KCB. And the Hilton was a good place then to meet. So I went to the office and I said to Tom, you know, we're merging with James. And to talk about it, we are going to have lunch today. Tom didn't blink. He said, oh, is that right? What time is lunch? I said, it's 1 o'clock. He said, okay, fine. You know, to this day, I'm still astounded. You know, that James agreed, and Tom, without blinking, said, So we went, we had lunch, and we agreed on some rough structure. No due diligence, no, guys, can we have a memorandum of understanding? All the things you do for a client, we did not do any of those. No conflict check, you know. So, in the afternoon, as it happened, James was acting for Gennaro Kibet's father-in-law in some litigation. So, he mentioned to Gennaro that very afternoon and said, you know, the matter that I'm handling, we may eventually have to transfer it to a new firm. And Gennaro was like, why? He said, oh, because John, Tom, and I are merging. So Gennaro says, how can you guys talk about merging
without me?
And Gennaro and I were social friends. We'd have a drink together. So James says, well, listen, if you want to talk about it, you talk to John. He's the one packaging this thing. So Gennaro called me about 4 o'clock, I remember. And his offices were at Transnational Plaza, which is just across the road from 20th. I said, why don't you come over? We have a quick chat. He came over and I asked him, are you sure? And the reason I asked him, are you sure, was because we were still in the Moi era. And Gennaro was very much an establishment lawyer. And we were coming to the tail end of the Moi era. But I wanted to ascertain that he was ready to let go of the privilege.
They gave me the establishment.
And he was like, no, I'm sure. reserve a place for me. So I said, fine. So suddenly, there's 4 of us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.